NICEC series for this year. So it's the last seminar for 2025 from the NICEC team. And the thinking behind it started with Sarah Finnegan-Dane, who was of the view, as perhaps we all feel, there should be better sharing across the home nations, and we should be able to draw on the innovations that are in place and in train in different parts of the United Kingdom. So I think Sarah started and reached out to Nikki and to Sandra in Scotland and to colleagues in Northern Ireland as well. And it's been a long time in the planning, hasn't it, Sarah? Just looking at you there. And we're really delighted to have the opportunity to share practice, and it's possible that we might want to revisit this as a topic in 2026 and give Sandra that opportunity to come back and maybe look more widely at practice. But today we've got an introduction from Michelle, which we're really looking forward to, Michelle, drawing on the work that you and colleagues did on pulling together your career services in the United Kingdom from 1999. So we're looking forward to that. Then we're going to hand over to David Morgan, who's stepped into the breach, and he'll be looking at elements of practice from Scotland and also from Northern Ireland. And then we'll be handing over to Nikki Lawrence to share some of the innovations that you're proud of from Wales. And then we really wanted to, in the best way possible at that stage, either go into breakout rooms if that seems appropriate with the numbers, or to have a general plenary with some key questions. So we'll make sure that those questions are clear to people at that stage. But perhaps if I could hand on to Michelle now. We've practiced with slides, haven't we, Michelle?
We have.
We're confident.
I don't know about that, but I'm going to try sharing my screen. Right, I'm screen sharing. There we go, from the beginning, and I can see you too. That is wonderful. Well, hello and welcome. It's lovely to have the opportunity to share with you my experience of pulling together a history of the career services in the UK since 1999. I hadn't been working on it since 1999, although I have to admit on some days it did feel like it. The work was commissioned by NICEC in 2019 and it was published in 2024. Our key question was, why bother? Well, I'm a firm believer that we can learn from history, and also an in-depth analysis of government policy that can reveal priorities, challenges and intent. What's the problem? And what, if anything, should we, that is government, do about it? I wonder if the focus of either quote sounds familiar to you. In fact, both are extracts from the House of Lords debate in 1909. Clearly, high-quality careers education and guidance has long been critical to young people's futures. Now, already published was a seminal work by the late David Peck, and that set out the history of the career service, singular, up to 1998. So what should the purpose of this book be? Who were we writing for? And how should the book be structured? A key motivator was providing a resource for those training to become professionally qualified careers advisors and needing to understand the history of the careers services. Also, there were and are many in positions of power and influence who have little, if any, understanding of what the career sector does. It's so much more than talking about jobs. So I thought it was important to create a single point of collective knowledge and insight that explained how government careers-related policy has led us to be where we are today. In 1999, the Westminster government devolved responsibility for careers education and guidance to each of the 4 home nations. Hence, each would create their own policy and delivery framework, with 3 of the 4 nations deciding on an all-age career service. Even so, I found that practitioners frequently defined themselves by the area of the sector within which they mainly practiced. For example, working in schools or higher education or with adults. And because of this, and recognising that contributors would be most able to research and write about the impact of policy on provision in the area of which they had personal knowledge and experience, I took the editorial decision of having a section for each of the home nations, and within each section having a chapter on the key areas: young people in education, services in higher education, and work with adults. It was important that the terminology was consistent throughout, complete with a glossary, and of course an index. It was essential that readers could dip in and out of the book with ease. Good grief, it was never intended as a book to be read from cover to cover. Although Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales developed all-age services, surprisingly it was within England that the evidence of a sustained policy focus on careers-related learning in primary schools was stronger. We've understood since the work of Linda Gottfriedson in the 1950s that we form our concept of who does what in the world of work at an early age. But it's taken longer for early years career-related learning to take hold. 2 key examples are the CDI Career Development Framework and the Careers and Enterprise Company's online primary platform. It's even possible now for primary schools to receive a national endorsement to recognise and celebrate excellence in children's career education and support. More recently, the devolved governments in Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales have taken steps to extend career-related learning in primary school, which is good. From our research, we found that each nation's career services took a while to settle. In 2001, Wales launched Career Wales, and although an all-age service there was a clear policy focus, although an all-age service, there was a clear policy focus on supporting young people aged 14 to 19. Similarly, in 2008, Scotland brought its services together under the umbrella of Skills Development Scotland, where it remains to this day. Crucial as a concept was their bringing together of skills and careers, supported by policy that drove the development of young people's career management skills. Northern Ireland kept responsibility for its career service within government. Hence, careers advisors there retained their unique status of being and are civil servants. Meanwhile, in England, the career services were subsumed completely, 100%, by the Connection Service, which focused almost exclusively on young people not in education, employment or training. It was disbanded in 2010 following a damning report by Alan Milburn, the very same person who's recently been commissioned to look into NEET. Responsibility for careers education and guidance was transferred to schools under the Education Act in 2011, but with no transfer of funds. It's interesting, with reference to career services in England between 1999 and 2020, John Goff said it would be more difficult to find a period more fraught with fundamental change, and that change continues. Whereas Ciara Bomford, writing about the career service in Wales, described the same period as one of stability and modernisation. And certainly across all 4 nations, the digital transformation has radically changed the nature of the work. Although the QAA have sought to embed employability across the higher education curriculum, I'm constantly surprised that universities have no legal requirement to provide career services. Indeed, with the increasing policy focus on graduate employability since the Deering Report of 1997 and a return on investment, career professionals have had to speak out to defend and explain their role and work in a university setting, emphasising how careers and employability in higher education sit at the intersection of policy and learning, the student experience, and knowledge exchange. Albeit across the 4 nations there is a focus towards meeting the needs of young people transitioning from learning to work, in terms of career services for adults, England has fared the worst, with possibly the most underfunded resource being the National Career Service. Government schemes are seldom easy to navigate, and few include any entitlement to career guidance or access to career development professionals. Access to support is often compounded by career services being devolved, while the policies and services of DWP and Job Centre Plus are not. Elsewhere, policy thinking is more joined up, with Careers Wales, which we'll hear about later, being an especially good example of having strategically balanced economic drivers with tackling disadvantage and promoting inclusivity. They, like Scotland, have also responded positively to the needs of adults facing redundancy or needing to upskill. An example is their support following the closure of Tartar's steel furnaces in Port Talbot. All of us are affected by policy, but its impact is influenced by the degree to which we as career practitioners adhere to or implement it, sometimes referred to as streetwise bureaucrats. Government policy is underpinned by an ideology, such as responsibility rests on the individual to find a job, any job, or face benefit sanctions. This short-termism has been constantly challenged by those in the career sector who know the economic and societal value of adopting a client-centred approach that supports the individual in developing the confidence and skills to secure meaningful work from the opportunities available. Differing ideology remains a cause of discord between career professionals and policy underpinning government employment services. And likewise, in scrutinising government policy, we should be wary of omissions. Here I cite an extract from the government response to the recent Work and Pensions Committee report on creating a new job and career service. Yet I noted in FE Week they knowingly cited this extract as the new service will also retain the Level 4 minimum qualification of careers advisors. Also, an emerging trend that I've noted in my analysis is an expectation that by publishing the policy, the matter is resolved. I've included here an example from the recently published Post-16 Education and Skills White Paper. As you know, the people we work with, they can be unpredictable, because generally speaking, they create their own sense of meaning, and based on this, they exercise personal agency. And careers advisors should not be held responsible for the outcome of their clients. Our role, whatever the policy, is to support, empower, and enable our clients to make informed decisions by providing impartial, reliable, and relevant careers education, information, advice, and guidance. With this in mind, it's time to hear about the innovative practice. First, with an overview provided by David Morgan, and then that will be followed with a more detailed presentation about the work in Wales. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that, Michelle. I'm sure there'll be things that people will want to revisit. hope we're not meeting the charge of being street wise bureaucrats, but that we're embracing the opportunity to be creative and relevant in what we provide for young people. So it will be interesting to explore that further. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Glenn, thank you. Shall I pick up there then, Glenn? Super. Can someone just wave if you can see the slides, just because it's a little funny too. Thank you very much. Super. Thank you very much. And thank you to Claire, Emma, and Michelle for asking me to come along. Yeah, it's been a bit of a rush bit, so I'm not an expert on what Scotland and Northern Ireland are doing, but I do have some awareness, and of course I've tapped into a couple of people I know who are working in those areas. So what I've got is just a couple of slides initially about innovation more broadly, because I think it's probably more than just learning from what innovations there is more to kind of how can we encourage more innovation across not just the home nations, but across the career development profession. And then I've got a brief overview of some things that are happening in Scotland, but also some of the things that are happening in Northern Ireland. So we're working quite a lot with the Career Service in Northern Ireland, and I think they're doing some really interesting things. So yes, I'm going to try and whiz through this and give you a bit of an overview. The first thing I kind of want to touch on is I think in the UK we have a fantastic opportunity in terms of the home nations. We have four nations creating one country where there are differences, there are cultural differences, economic differences, but there are a lot of similarities. And if we want to do international comparisons, you know, there are fewer differences if we can compare across the UK. But we have four different systems. One, England, is substantially different, but the Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland systems are not the same, albeit they're all age career services. So I think there's a great opportunity to learn from each other, and I know there are aspects of that are done. Nikki may touch on this, but we had the career services from the four nations on a panel on Tuesday, our national conference, and part of that was them talking about some of the amazing things they're doing, but some of that was also about how they work together and where they do share and learn from each other. I would love to have brought insights from that with you, but unfortunately I had to go on a DFE call for 2 hours and completely missed that session. So Nikki may be able to give you a bit more about what people said in there. But just briefly, innovation. So and driving innovation in practice. So I was thinking about this today. I think actually there's kind of four broad areas. The first is, how do you encourage innovation to happen in the first place? So how do we make sure there is a curiosity in organizations and individuals, whether that's researchers, people doing their MSc, or doing the masters, or doing a PhD, or practitioners getting involved. And we work, obviously, as you all know, with NICEC, with AGCAS, and with ICEGS on the research conference in spring each year. And that is deliberately targeted at practitioners to do research, because it's really trying to encourage that curiosity among practitioners as well. So how do we encourage innovation is the first challenge. How do we measure the impact of that innovation? It's great people go and try things, but if you don't know whether they've worked or not, how valuable is that? So there's the need to measure it. That could be very formal, it could be formal studies, or it could be quite informal, just getting feedback, just some appreciation of whether this innovation has worked. How do we share innovation? And I think that's the main focus for today, but there's many ways of doing that so that more people are aware of it. But then I think the last one is equally important, which is, so how do we scale valuable innovations? And I think this is sometimes where things fall down. There's lots of pilots, lots of people try things, lots of people do different things, but actually scaling it is an art in itself, partly because you've got to take into account different contexts. So that innovation may have worked in that context, whether that's a geographic context, demographic context, but how do you scale it and do that on mass? And that's where I think the challenge is, particularly for the public sector career services across the UK. So there's different aspects of it, and that altogether is the system we need to enable people to really drive innovation across career development. There are a lot of things happening. I think we can encourage more innovation, but we could do more to measure it, and that can be challenging with limited budgets. We can definitely do more to share innovation, but also how do we get government, organizational buy-in to kind of, okay, now let's scale these up. I just wanted to link innovation to the CDI's 2030 strategy. We launched this on Tuesday at the conference. I am not going to spend 20 minutes taking you through the whole strategy. There'll be plenty of time for that over December and January, so we'll be launching things over that period. But just wanted to say it's got a real strong focus on professionalism. It's all about how we further enhance professionalism across career development to really drive the benefit and the buy-in to career development playing a significant part of policy and people's lives. But there's a couple of key areas, I think, where innovation is implicitly baked into it. So the first is around continuous development. So the continuous development of people individually, practitioners and researchers, teachers, policymakers, and so on, but also how we continuously develop as a profession. So how we respond to the changing world in which we work. AI is the big talking point at the moment, but there's net zero, there's demographics, there's changing policy environments and more. The second one is around this concept of belonging. So we really want to kind of foster a greater sense of belonging so that people feel they belong to the career development community. We have a number of people who are highly engaged, but we know there are a lot of people who kind of do their job and they're less engaged in career development as their profession. We want them to feel far more part of that profession. And that is about that community of learning, sharing, collaboration. And that's where innovation will also come from. In terms of the sharing side, you've got strengthening the knowledge base. We have a knowledge base in career development. We know we need more, particularly in some areas. So how can we really share that knowledge across, collate it and share it across? And all of that really is about helping influence policymakers so they make informed decisions. They can see what best practice is. We can provide the evidence. They can see the innovations and they can make decisions to scale that up. So around all of that, there's a number of things everyone can do. I'm not going to pick all of these, but in continuous development, obviously CPD helps, brings you fresh learning, new ideas, as well as refreshing access to journals such as the NICEC journal. Conferences and events, I think, are really important. I think what's different for me about them compared to CPD is the interaction with colleagues. So again, using the example of the last 2 days, yes, the key talks and the sessions were fantastic and people learned from them, got ideas from them. They probably got more from talking to 150 colleagues around the place, and that was really, really valuable. And we do a couple of things on this to try and make sure we're kind of bringing this innovative feel to it. We do have talks by well-known figures. Deirdre was on stage, Tristram was on stage, other big names from across the profession were there because people know them and they know an awful lot. But we also work hard to bring in completely new voices, people who are in practice or doing research that wouldn't normally get necessarily that spotlight. So we get this different information, but also different perspectives and different views. And the third thing we do is we bring in people from outside the profession. So we can sometimes get in a bit of a habit of talking to ourselves a little bit. So we had Barry Fletcher from Youth Futures Foundation. We had the Institute of Employability Studies, Employment Studies, and Nuffield Foundation, and they bring a wider context into the kind of career development conversation. You've then got your belonging to different networks, how we encourage research by engaging people through different means. And then on the sharing bit, the one thing we've done more recently is the research directory we launched last year, I think it was, early this year. We are not going to be, and we will never be, a research organisation. There are people who do that fantastically. What we can do as a professional body, we hope, is improve the access to the research that is out there and encourage people to do more research. So the research directory tries to bring that together so that people can access the research wherever it is more effectively. So that's a little bit about how innovation maybe has different stages. Some things we do and other people are doing to do that. So to move on to Scotland, a few items that people have flagged. There may be one or two of you on the call who know more about one or two of these, but just kind of a few of the kind of key approaches. So this all came out from the review that happened two and a bit years ago. And one of the key things that recommended was this careers collaborative. So SDS obviously are the public career service. They are an all-age career service. They are the dominant way of providing careers within Scotland, but they recognise that they don't work in isolation. There are other careers-related organisations, directly careers-related or kind of secondary, if you like, who are part of that ecosystem. So the Careers Collaborative has brought everyone together. It's chaired by 2 people now, one who's the operations director for SDS, and it's a chance to kind of discuss across the system ways of working and things to do. One of the things they're looking at the moment is how could they develop shared performance or quality measures across the Scottish system. So it's a new approach that they're taking in Scotland to do that. They're moving increasingly from SDS locations for delivery of provision of services into more community locations. So I was reading about in Fife, they've closed down their centre, but you can access it through multiple community centres, community hubs. They've got sessions in shopping centres. And this is partly being enabled by their investment in technology. So you can go online and book an appointment at one of these locations, so you can see when they're there, you can see where they are, you can book some time in. It's online, but also it's on the phone for people who don't have digital access. So they're getting more into the places where people are rather than bringing people to an SDS centre. Some of the more practice-oriented work they're doing, so they've set up skills challenges as part of the review. So these are challenges within schools, so they're about focused on work-related experiences. They're very experiential, so it might be what was one? One was a gamification organisation, and it was the young people were stranded on a desert island and they had to build a society, including, well, what industries do you need? Well, who's going to do the fire chopping down? Who's going to build this? Who's going to? So you end up with quite a different range. It's delivered by teachers, but it's supported by employers and careers advisors. As part of it, you get group careers guidance, so helping people work through it. And what they're doing is they're developing that schema on an iterative basis. They've introduced mentoring for care experienced modern apprentices. So if you are a modern apprentice or are going to be, and you've come from the care system, they're providing one-to-one careers guidance opportunities. Oh, sorry, they are providing careers advice, but also they're providing access to a mentor, so someone who can stay with you and guide you through your career. Not necessarily careers advice, but giving that more mentoring experience. That's coming out of work time, so it's not an additional investment the individual has to make, and it's being done with the employers. They've got a lot of focus on transitions from the armed forces. They're being rewarded. They had the bronze awards 2023. They've got the silver award this year, I think this month actually. So they've just been awarded that by the Ministry of Defence Employee Recognition Scheme. So that's for their own work internally. But they have been investing in tools for veterans. They're running veteran-focused careers fairs, one-to-one careers advice, and a no one left behind policy, which obviously resonates with the military. They're also working with the Career Transitions Partnership to offer resettlement training. So a lot of work going on there, and it's this targeting with those three, I think, specific groups with specific solutions is part of their innovation. And finally, I think like most people, they're looking at technology. So they're integrating chatbot into My World of Work, so they can offer 24/7 support. Also, that is looking at how it can do interactive support. So it's not just kind of how you use it to search and things, but how it can guide you through tools, how it can guide you through services such as how do I fill in forms or CVs or carry out job search. And they're looking at integrating further elements on that. So a fairly quick run through. Sandra will be able to talk much more detail about these, but it just gives you a sense of some of the things that are going on in Scotland. In terms of Northern Ireland, it's following a similar trend. I'm going to come back to this afterwards, but a lot of this work started with an independent review of the careers guidance that was commissioned by the Department for the Economy, led by Associate Professor Deirdre Hughes. And there was, I think, 15 recommendations, but they boil down broadly to these four. Start careers-related learning in primary education. Develop common standards, central standards for delivery in schools, but also allow flexible delivery and accountability in the school. So it's that combination of kind of high-level standards and more localized responsibility. Focus more on regional and local collaboration for adult services, and develop digital resources. So they've published in June this year, June, yeah, earlier this year, The Careers Action Plan is a really good piece of work from it's a combination of the Careers Service in the Department for the Economy and the Department of Education, who look after careers teachers, equivalent careers leaders in schools. And that again came down to some key areas. They want to establish a careers ecosystem, so mirroring the Scotland approach, but how they engage people from across the whole system. Establish careers education in primary school, drive more quality standards, and also build the capability to deliver careers guidance. Reform delivery in schools, FE and HE, strengthen provisions for SEND, things you would hope there. Develop a careers portal, which is something they're working on at the moment, and then work with parents, carers of the community as more influence of the decisions young people and adults might make. So just some of the things that are coming from that, they're re-establishing the Careers Advisory Forum. So they've got that ecosystem view. So I think that had kind of that gone a little bit by the wayside. They have a joint ministerial governance committee over this now, so it goes across both the economy and education. So that's a big improvement. They are developing the careers portal. I was at their conference a few weeks ago. They're giving an update on that. It's in the kind of design and development stage, then it'll go to procurement and go out. But they have put a huge amount of focus on what is the experience, what are the pathways, how will clients use it, how will careers advisors use it, how would employers use it, and so on. So that's shaping up to be something that could be pretty impressive. And in terms of some of the kind of more practice side, they carried out the Drawing the Future work with education employers. Deirdre Hughes is involved with that again, working with some schools and getting young people and presenting. So I think they had 30 schools on kind of virtual meetings with multiple employers talking about different roles. And by the end of that, they found that 3/4 of young people had a better understanding of work, and 1/4 of young people changed their views about what work they'd like to do. They are piloting at the moment, or I think might be coming out in November, software in schools to help them with young people who have autism or living with autism, to help them with their clients, or so specific to careers services. So there are tools there. So I think there'll be stuff coming out from that. And one thing they were talking about when we were in the conference was they are launching a pilot of comparing year 12 students who have 1 interaction with the career service versus 4. So they get 4 interactions over a reasonable period of time, and they're measuring. They want to formally measure the difference in that to go, okay, does it make a substantial difference? Does it work for different types of students? So there's a range of things going on in both Scotland and Northern Ireland. I think the parallels I would draw out are both of these are kind of come from large scale reviews to overall strategies and plans, and then to specific areas of action and innovation and trialing things. So it's kind of, you've got that broader piece down to, rather than just going higgledy-piggledy, trying different things. But also there's a theme of iteration in both of them, that we're going to try this, we're going to learn from it, we're going to iterate it. And I think that's a key part of the innovation that's going on within both nations. So I'll stop there, but I hope that's been useful.
Thanks very much for that, David. Particularly remarkably detailed contribution when we only asked you to step in at about 10 o'clock this morning. So I'm hugely grateful to you for doing that. And for providing both the bigger picture in terms of the strategic nature of the innovations in the areas that you've mentioned, but also drilling down to looking at the capability of individual practitioners and tailoring support to particular groups. So you talked about veterans, and you talked about young people with autism, and the particularly micro projects that you might be able to really improve the quality of support to individual groups. So I'm really grateful to you for that, and I hope we can pick that up. Nikki, if I could hand the baton over to you now to pick up on some of the innovations in Wales that you're proud of and able to move forward with.
Fabulous. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for inviting me to talk today. I'm going to try and share my slides now. Hopefully, is it going to work? Let's. Oh, sorry. Hopefully it will run through them smoothly. So I'm Nikki Lawrence, I'm Chief Exec at Careers Wales. I'm also a member, board member of the CDI. So that's David's been talking about the 2 days we had at the conference, which was a great 2 days, I must say. And for me, what I really got out of it was the talking to many colleagues there, as well as obviously the presentations we heard in workshops and that. But today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the innovation that is happening in Careers Wales. Has that moved through a slide? Did somebody, David, could you? No, it hasn't moved on to a little.
We're seeing a picture of Nikki Lawrence with a picture. Right. Yeah, fine.
That's what you need to see, a picture of me. Oh, nice. Okay, great. So I'm going to talk to you about a few areas of innovation that are happening with Careers Wales at the moment. So I'm going to talk about our work in focus challenges, which hopefully you can see on the slide there. Then I'm going to move on and talk about our Future Jobs Wales, touch on AI and virtual reality, as David's talked about in terms of, especially with SDS. And then I'm going to finish to talk a little bit about our careers craft. So firstly, work in the focus challenges. Okay, so as part of the curriculum for Wales, there's a careers and work related experience. It's now a mandatory cross-cutting theme from ages of 3 to 16. And there's clear guidance within that CWRE should be embedded in the teaching of all areas of learning rather than being delivered as a standalone subject. At the same time as this, Welsh Government is really promoting a pedagogy shift in the way that the new curriculum is taught. So they're encouraging schools in Wales to shift from that teacher-led, task-driven learning towards a more learner-centred approach based on real and authentic learning experiences. So in response to these policy changes, we've had a look in Careers Wales at our approach to education and business support in schools. So we're moving away from our traditional approaches of employer engagement, so things such as presentations, assembly talks, and mock interviews, in favour of a more integrated curriculum-based model. And one of the ways we're doing this is through our Work in Focus curriculum challenges. So as part of these challenges, we work with an employer on relevant areas of the learning in the curriculum. So we've asked employers to think of challenges that are real life workplace challenges. And we've linked them in with a teacher from school to design the challenge content. And then that challenge is delivered over multiple sessions with a mix of employer and teacher-led support. So in 24-25, we developed a series of challenges linked to Welsh Government's key investment sectors, such as tourism, renewable energy, food and drink, just for some examples. And I'm going to just run through a couple of examples for you now. There we go. So we've been working, for example, and developed a challenge with the Principality. And in this particular challenge, it's around developing of a young person's saving app. We've also been working with Into Film, so making a film on teenage life in Wales. Working with British Transport Police around improving travel to work safety. And lastly, one of the challenges to develop bespoke smoothies with Castle Howell Foods. So we've also been thinking about this and developing challenges on a broader policy drivers. So, for example, Welsh in the workplace, racial equality, and mental health and well-being. And finally, on this area of our innovation, we're using the concept of the curriculum challenges to promote more strategic approaches to employer engagement. So we've developed a challenge which looks at community engagement and public consultation for renewable energy projects. And that's taught through persuasive writing as part of the languages, literacy and communication area of the learning in Curriculum for Wales. And that challenge can be used by a whole host of renewable energy projects and pathways and supported in schools right across Wales. That challenge has been endorsed by Net Zero Industry Wales as a means of raising awareness of opportunities in a critically important growth sector, but in a way that's embedded to day-to-day learning for young people. So that's a little bit about the challenges we've been developing. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about our Future Jobs Wales. And if you look on our website, you'll be able to see this Future Jobs Wales. And it's an interactive labour market information product, which we launched in 2024. And it presents up-to-date labour market information for 16 industries and across the 4 regions of Wales. So we believe it's unique, innovative, it's bilingual, which of course is important to us in Wales, accessible, and it uses API. It uses best practice in user research and design, and we've used trusted sources and it is quality assured. So just a little bit more about that. The data, as I was just saying, is driven by API technology, and it's from data suppliers such as Lightcast, who derive their data from ONS and Lightcast's own job posting analytics. And it presents, as you can see on the screen now, contextualized labour market information in a user-friendly way. It's to help support young people to explore ideas, career planning, and help them to broaden horizons and making informed decisions. And just a little bit more on Future Jobs Wales before we move on to AI, artificial intelligence, is it can explore things like give you an overview of the industry, the size of the industry, what's new in that industry. It also gives you samples of job information profiles and future projections of jobs in demand or those that may be in decline. So as the screen's showing you now, I'll move on to talk to you a little bit about what we're doing in AI. So there's a number of projects in that area. We have about 4 projects going on at the moment, and we're piloting certain things, and then we'll embed them more as we learn from them. So we've been developing a bot called Carrie, and that bot is going to help in terms of triaging the support needs of 16 to 18-year-olds. So helping them to identify and action their support needs, such as do they need to book an appointment with a careers advisor, or would they be better signposted to information that they could get on our website. We've also been rolling out a process where an AI agent will help to create an advisor's notes after their guidance interviews. So the AI does a first draft of the notes, and this will be checked and verified by the careers advisor. And we've found out recently that could save around 13 minutes of admin time per interview. So we're really looking to embed that now. And that saving of time, of course, helps the careers advisors to be able to do the longer and more work with the people that they're supporting. We're also developing an AI tool to help with the assessment of guidance. And this again will help reduce the admin burden on our team managers and it can act as a tool for self-assessment and self-reflection by staff. Again, the final decision on the assessment will rest with a human. Another one that I'm using a lot at the minute is we're running a trial with Microsoft Copilot, and we're exploring the ways that the co-pilot can help in terms of aiding with productivity and efficiency, so right across the organisation. So we've been using it, for example, creating recaps and summaries of actions after meetings. We've been using it as part of our recruitment process, so being the note taker of recruitment interviews, for example. We've been using it to generate first draft of content. So there was a 176-page document released recently from the Senedd following a piece of work that the Children and Young People's Committee had done. So we've been able to ask Copilot to summarise that 176 pages and really highlight on issues that related to Careers Wales, for example, in that document. So it's proving to be really useful, and we're only piloting this year, and we'll evaluate it, of course, and then we'll look at our next steps around that. Okay. Virtual reality. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit about what we're doing around virtual reality. So we've been developing some virtual reality tours of our careers centres, and that's been aimed primarily at neurodivergent customers, and that's to help show our customers what they can expect when they come to our career centres. And we're going to expand on this and do similar tours of different work environments for a new series of resources for our ALN students entitled What It's Like to Work In. And lastly, I just wanted to, and I couldn't not mention our Careers Craft. So our Careers Craft is an award-winning Minecraft world, and it's designed to engage younger pupils, so primarily ages 8 to 11, to help them begin to explore careers. And it uses famous landmarks around Wales and links them to the areas of learning and experiences in our curriculum for Wales, and to key economic sectors within careers. It's had considerable international attention. It's been highlighted as good practice in international conferences. There's been a lot of articles in the media around our Careers Craft. And it's been downloaded around 8 million times and remains one of the most popular worlds on the entire global Minecraft marketplace, with downloads running at around 40 to 50,000 a month. So it's something I am particularly proud of that we've developed in Careers Wales. And we're continuously looking at how we can develop our Careers Craft world. We've been working with key stakeholders. For example, recently we've been working with Bluestone Resort in West Wales, and we've developed another site as part of this world on that section. Okay, so that's hopefully given you a little bit about what Careers Wales have been up to recently in terms of innovation. And yeah, I've just highlighted a few areas that we've been working on.
Nikki, thanks so much. I mean, just a few areas you say, but it's quite overwhelming, the breadth of it. I don't know if people would like to pick up any questions with you or with Michelle or David. So maybe if I could ask people to think if there's anything that they would like to pick up from the content of what people have shared with us. Maybe if I start, you've talked about the projects, Nikki, things like the British Transport Police. And one of the things that David mentioned was the scaling up of projects and innovations. And I just wondered, that experiential project that you were talking about, would that be developed and piloted in one school and then rolled out throughout Wales? I just trying to get a sense of the scale of it, I guess.
Yeah, thanks, Claire. It's very early days on these challenges, so we're only in the early stages of developing, but we absolutely had that in our minds. So we really wanted to make sure we do things in Careers Wales that future-proofs us. So developing a challenge in one school and then being able to use it in other schools is where we wanted to go with it. But as I said, we're just using them in a school at the minute, and how that will work. It seems to be working quite well with some of the challenges, but I'm not sure how it will work with all of them. So if you ask me back in a year or so, I might be able to tell you, but that is absolutely what I envisaged as doing, is making sure that we have a bank of these challenges and each school could pick them up. They may want to work with local employers but in, say, Principality, the local employer in, say, the North region compared to the South. But yeah, that's what we're hoping.
Lovely. Any other, well, questions from people that they want to pick up with any of our three speakers? Michelle?
I just think it's so encouraging to hear where there is an integrated curriculum-based model. I think in England, with the current curriculum review, you know, as the CDI have said, we missed a huge opportunity. Within the review, there are constant references to young people needing to have clear pathways and careers, and yet at the same time, the government is saying, but the careers fell outside of this review. Hopefully they'll pick up on it later, and hopefully that won't be too late. But it's a really lovely to have this example of elsewhere, where it's been taken seriously and acted on. So thank you.
There's an interesting question in the chat that's from Marietta about where can I find a similar overview from England? Well, there's a challenge, isn't it? I guess when Nikki, you were talking about a more creative and project-based approach to experiential learning. Then in England, I was thinking that links to what's being called the 10 days equivalent of experience of the workplace. And the Careers and Enterprise Company in England is piloting something that is almost difficult to say, Equilex, you know, a notion of experiences of the workplace that go through from year or key stage 3 through to key stage 4. So there seem to me some parallels. Nikki, is that something that you're aware of or see any parallels with?
I hope this answers your question. In Wales, there's been a lot of reports recently around work experience. Back in 2015, I can see Sarah on the screen, so she'll remember this. We had our remit changed, and we used to do work experience, and whereas our remit changed and we weren't able to do work experience anymore, but we do what we call tailored work experience. So, for example, we had 500,000 to help 500 young people in tailored work experience. But there's a lot of potential change going to happen with the election, and a lot of talk around work experience. And there was a report recently which I referred to, the 176-page document, and it talks a lot around work experience there. And we'd actually provided some information about how much it would cost to reintroduce that element of work. 2.3 million, I think it was quoted. So we'll have to see where we go with that, but we have been asked in terms of our tailored work experience to do that out of our core budget now. So I suppose, you know, as in England, there is a lot of talk around how important this area of work is. So there's that sort of.
But similar pressures on funding.
With funding, absolutely, yeah.
And one of the things you're saying there is the potential influence of a policy shift from a change in government direction.
Yeah. So we're developing a new strategy as I speak. That's what I've been involved in today, which is quite challenging when we don't know quite what's going to happen in Wales in terms of who is, you know, going to win the election and what are their priorities going to be. So
Yeah.
yeah.
David, do you want to pick things up, and then maybe it's worth us going into breakout rooms if people would like to drill down into some of this? David?
Yeah, just on Marietta's question, I think not adults, but the CCR, yeah, like, as you said, Claire, you know, they've got the modern work experience in Equilex, and that's kind of piloting and being rolled out. They've completed the pilot for primary school, in primary schools, particularly working in disadvantaged areas. And then I think there are a range of other things going on. But the other side, on the adult side, you've got, of course, the Pathfinders, which the DWP are running in a number of areas, looking at the jobs and career service. They are, from feedback from people in the areas, they're probably a little bit more focused on changing the nature of the work of the work coach as opposed to the career service bit, but they are looking at how the two work together. So there might be some interesting learning coming out of those. And then the other area is looking at some of the local areas, so, you know, the combined authorities, mayoral authorities. So the northeast are doing quite a lot of work. West Yorkshire have been doing pieces of work, West Midlands and Manchester, although they tend to go and do their own thing, they're pretty innovative. So I'd look at those areas and some of the things they're doing.
So it can be at a mayoral level, I guess, the innovation. That's certainly true with Manchester. So it's difficult to capture that. Hazel, you've made a really interesting point about the value of hearing about these innovations, but it's then what can we do with it to create it in our individual settings. Michael, you're still there, aren't you?
Yes.
Do you think we could go into maybe 5 breakout rooms and just give people a chance to pick up the questions that we'd try to think would enable us to share ideas a bit more? So what do people take away from the different practices that people have shared, and what do you want to hear more about? And how can the innovations be better shared? Would that be possible?
That's fine. How long would you like the breakout rooms to last?
I think if we have quarter of an hour, and then come back at 15:15, so just slightly under that. Because if
Okay.
it's too short, it's just frustrating, isn't it? And
Okay,
if
so
we
we'll
come
open
back
them
at
up now.
15:15. I know some people have to go, so thank you very much to everybody for being part of this, if you do. Like, you never know, do you, what's happening in other breakout rooms? We had a lot of fun in ours, and I took great delight in getting Alistair to report back from our group, because normally he's telling me what to do, because he's my internal quality assurer for me as assessor. So I thought I was going to take back control and ask Alistair to. Do you mind, Alistair,
Not
just
at all.
1 or
Well,
2
I
points?
don't have a leg to stand on, Claire, do I? So that's it's karma. It's fine. I'm not that awful, I hope. But yeah. No, that's good. So I mean, there were a number of things we talked about. We started off just thinking about some of the themes that came out, including just the value of history was the first. And again, you know, with Michelle's introduction, it was so interesting seeing how she pulled some of the key themes together from that. There was the point David made around scalability as well. You know, there's all these great things going on. Is how can we make them scalable? So I'd love to say we've got the answer. We did think maybe getting Deirdre Hughes involved in everything, in that I think of the impact that she had in Wales, you know, with the reviews that established working, you know, helped working Wales to form, and then the work that she's done in Northern Ireland, which has brought the two departments more closely together. So perhaps that's an answer, but no, it's more of a question. So now then, think you, yeah, and that came from a conversation around, well, in England, the last review of work with adults was in 2013, but then that got us on to thinking about, well, some of the reviews that have taken place in the other home nations since then. So Now my notes are getting more fragmented from this point. So
Well, don't worry, Alistair.
Yeah.
Maybe there's other people that want to.
So we'll start for 10 then from our
Yeah,
group.
that's brilliant. Thanks for kicking off.
Okay.
Any other discussions from different breakout rooms in relation to ideas that we take from what we've heard and what we want to hear more about? You know, do we want to have another seminar sharing these insights, or to drill down on some of the projects? Any things that other groups want to share? David?
Yeah, just one bit that came up in our conversation, because we're following up on the is innovation happening in England, and I think actually there is quite a lot of innovation, but the problem is because the English system is so fragmented, like individual schools or MATs and so on, that the innovation is happening at that level, which makes we don't know what the level of innovation is. It's quite possible there's a lot of innovation happening, possibly more, because there's everyone can innovate if they want. We know there are people who are definitely not innovating, but it makes it really hard to share it without a system in place to do that across that fragmented system. So where the advantage of the other home nations is that where they try something and test it and it works, everybody can know about it. It's kind of in the system. Whereas if you're a school or a college and you do something fantastic in England, it's actually quite hard for everyone to know about that. So there's definitely more we could tap into there. And I'm going to have to go, I'm afraid, because I've got to leave at 6:10.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Hazel, do you want to pick up?
Yeah, I had a really interesting conversation. We want to back up the point about England because, yeah, we just want to hear more. Also about anything technology, AI. Just another session I went to yesterday in Australia. Massive amounts being talked about there. And in terms of sharing, we do read our NICEC journal, so we appreciate anything in there. The one area that we've sort of really got into was about work experience and our concerns that it is so expensive and difficult to run. But here locally, work experience is still going ahead in most of the schools that I know of. But what's happening is students are being tasked with finding their own work experience. And of course, that then replicates all the inequalities that we know about.
Yeah.
So there's something there that isn't right, and we just had a really interesting conversation about that and what's happened, post-COVID, and that replicated into another area that Marietta has worked in. That it's something about students not getting the support at school or through the career service as they used to back in the day, and we can think about the history of there. I can think about when I first started in careers, how strong the work experience teams were. And it's also something about employers maybe heading towards AI. So work experience sort of bridges the problems that between AI and COVID and all these major challenges that we're facing. So we had a really interesting conversation around that.
That is very, and it will be interesting to hear whether or not some of those fundamental problems are being bottomed out through the Equilex project or pilot in England, or whether they are being sort of ignored and sidelined, because sometimes things go into the too hard pile, don't they, and don't get bottomed out effectively.
I'd love to hear about that.
Thanks very much for that, Hazel. So more about AI as a solution. I'm very excited about the idea of saving 13 minutes on a write-up of an interview. But then there are issues associated with that. Emma?
Just to say quickly what we talked about. So we talked about scalability as well. And we talked about sort of shelf life of some of the innovations and sort of the modifications that are needed. And we also talked about sort of applicability or focus on different groups and whether you can move or adapt something for another group. So we were talking about lots of the work, really exciting work in Wales is focused on young people, and then about sort of whether some of those innovations could work with older people, and talked about the Future Jobs Wales interactive labour market product, and about how that was tested for all different types of audiences. So I don't know whether I've reflected that conversation correctly.
That sounds really good. I thought you were going to talk about the veterans, but you were talking about the young people and the extent to which those supports and innovations could be more widely applied. Well, it's been a really interesting seminar, and I'm hugely grateful to people for stepping in into the breach. I hope people have found it useful. Michelle, do you want to sort of tie anything up from your perspective as the person that kicked us off?
Well, I would just like to say thank you to the speakers, obviously, but also thank you for those who have, stuck with us throughout this hour and a half listening. I think it's really important to put two cliches together. That yes, innovation can be like a breath of fresh air. Wonderful, great. But I think we also have to be careful not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There are some things that we've done for years and they still work. So if it works, it doesn't need fixing. But it is really good to have those innovations. If people want to keep up to date with changes of what's happening in the country, if you're not already a member of the CDI, within Careers Matters, they always do an update for each of the 4 nations. I'm glad they now include England as well as that. So that's a great source. Obviously, I would promote the history book, and I hope anyone who's got somebody doing Unit 1 in the OCR will find it useful or in their QCD. But basically, thank you. It is difficult to disseminate the good work we're doing, but that doesn't make it any less valuable.
Yeah, and demonstrating the impact. Thanks for that, Michelle. And as Michelle said, thank you to everyone that's still here at the end. Have a good evening, everybody. And thanks again to great speakers. Thank you.
Thank you.